To install WSUS in Server Manager, I'm just going to go back and click on my dashboard. And there is Add Roles and Features, or you could just click Manage. And Add Roles and Features is there as well. So click either one of those. And then the Add Roles and Features wizard, I'm just going to go Next. Role-based or feature-based, we'll click Next again. This is the machine I want to install this on. Next. When we get to the server roles, if we scroll to the bottom of the list, the very last thing is Windows Server Update Services. So that's our WSUS. And in this list that pops up, I can see it's going to install the administrative tools for WSUS. It's also going to install IIS because WSUS is actually a web server, and it's going to load this Windows internal database. Well, I'm going to click Add Features with all of those. I'll choose Next. On the feature screen, that'll say blank. Nothing additional do I need to add. On the things to note, this just says at least one WSUS server on the network must be able to download updates from Microsoft. That would be the machine we're actually on. So I'm going to choose Next for that. That's just informative. This gives me the option to install WSUS. That's what we want to do. All the services. So I'm going to choose that. And it has this WID connectivity. WID stands for Windows Internal Database. So WSUS does require a database. You have two choices. You can use this Windows Internal Database, or the WID, or you can use an actual SQL Server database. If you use a SQL Server, that assumes you have a SQL Server that you've already set up on the network. I'm not doing that. I'm going to use the built-in Windows Internal, so I'm going to leave this on the default with WID connectivity and WSUS services selected. I'll choose Next for that. Now this option, where do you want to store the updates? Store updates in the following location. Choose a valid path on my machine, or you could specify a remote path. What I'm going to do, on my server, I'm just going to open the C drive. And I'm going to create a new folder on the C drive. And I'm going to name that folder WSUS -updates. I'm going to type that path. So C:/WSUS So C:\WSUS updates. There is an option to deselect this. If I deselect this, you can see in the description above, it says if you need to save disk space, clear the checkbox to store the updates on Microsoft Update. Downloads will be slower. So if you clear this checkbox, you do not actually download updates to your WSUS server. What you download is a list of updates. You can simply go through the list and you handpick the updates you actually want to download. I don't want to do that. I'm actually going to fully download the updates. But if you want to save time, you can just deselect this and the updates will all be stored on the Microsoft site. So it makes this run much faster. But I'm going to go ahead and select that and actually download the updates to my WSUS. Now for your lab environment, I would actually suggest that you deselect that. Because if you download these updates, it will take several hours and several gigs of download. So probably preferred that you deselect that. But just to demonstrate the full capability, I'm going to leave mine checked. So I'm going to choose Next. And I'm going to click Install. Now that my install is complete, I'm going to click Launch Post-Installation Tasks. If you close this window before you actually click that, you can also click on the notification icon, and that has our WSUS Launch Post-Installation Tasks as well. So either one of those will run the same thing for you. But I'm going to click on Launch Post-Install Tasks here. Now it says, please wait while your server is configured. So that'll take a few minutes to actually go through. Now, for the sake of the video, I will shorten many of these sequences. So don't be alarmed if you do this on your own. and it takes several minutes for this to actually go through. As long as it says, please wait while your server is configured, then you know it's still working. This tells me my configuration successfully completed, so that is done. I'm going to close this window. Now I'm going to click on Tools, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the list, and I'm just going to choose WSUS, the Windows Server Update Services. To me, one of the most interesting things about WSUS is the fact that the initial configuration wizard for WSUS walks you through the full configuration. So once I'm finished with this wizard, all I need to do is come back and start approving, looking at, testing all my updates. There will be not a configuration beyond this that I'm required to do. So here, I'm going to minimize my server manager in the background. I just think that's a little easier to look at if it's kind of against the blue background. The before you begin says, is the server firewall configured to allow clients to access the server? Well, my clients must be able to connect to this WSUS server. So the firewall configuration on my clients on the WSUS server, and if you have any intermediate firewalls, they have to allow access to the WSUS server. Number 2, can this computer connect to the upstream server? I'm setting up just one WSUS, so I just need to be able to connect to Microsoft. Earlier, I verified my WSUS has internet connectivity, so that's a non-issue. Do you have user credentials for the proxy server if needed? Some environments require you to manually type in a proxy server to connect to the internet. Now, in the real world, that is not extremely common now that you manually have to configure that. But if I do require a proxy for an internet connection, you have to supply that here. So I'm going to click Next on the Before You Begin. The Microsoft Update Improvement Program simply sends information back to Microsoft. So I'm going to deselect that. I have no interest in joining that Update Improvement Program. So we'll click Next there. Now it says, who do you want to synchronize from? Choose an upstream server. This is my first WSUS server, so I'm going to synchronize from Microsoft Update. If this WSUS I'm setting up now is in a branch office, and assume I have a WSUS in my headquarters location that already exists. If I'm in a branch office, I could say synchronize from another WSUS, and I would simply type in the name of the WSUS in my parent office. Then you would have what was formerly called a parent-child relationship. Now it's called an upstream and downstream server. But I'm setting up just one WSUS, so I'm going to synchronize from Microsoft Update. I'm going to choose Next for that. I do not require a proxy server, so I'm going to leave that with the defaults and click Next. Now this wants me to connect to the internet. This is going to update the types of updates that exist, products that can be updated, and available languages. So I'm going to click Start Connecting, and this can run for several hours. So after this is done, we will resume in the next demo. But if you're doing this on your own, don't be alarmed if it takes hours and hours to actually fully download.